the legend, the creative director of Halloween Horror Nights here at Universal Studios Hollywood. Make some noise for Mr. John Murdy!
Wow, I don't get that at home, I'll tell you that much. How you guys doing tonight? All right, thank you. First of all, thank you guys for all coming out. Did you get a chance to walk through El Cucuy? Yeah. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit about what went into creating this maze. And I have to ask the question, how many of you guys have been to Halloween Horror Nights? Not counting tonight, right? Okay. How many of you guys have never been to Halloween Horror Nights? You're in trouble. If you've been to Halloween Horror Nights before, you know we did La Llorona. We did a maze for La Llorona for 2 years. So this year we wanted to change it up, and I started doing research, and I came across the story of El Cucuy. With every single maze that we consider for Halloween Horror Nights, people always ask us, like, what goes into our decision-making to decide whether we want to make a certain movie or a television show or a video game or a band into a maze. It's always these three same things. They never change. One is awareness. That's just how popular is it? How much do people know it? The other two things, which I'm mostly going to talk about tonight, are environments, because we put a lot of effort and detail into every single set we create, as I'm sure you saw today. And the last is characters. So when I was researching El Cucuy, how many of you guys have ever heard of El Cucuy before you came here? Okay, quite a few of you. There's certain parts of this myth that kind of are universal, because the story actually started way back in Portugal hundreds of years ago. And one of the weird things we came across is originally El Cucuy, or El Coco as he's also known, referred to a ghost with a pumpkin for a head. Another thing, according to the legend, is that he's a shapeshifter. He changes form. Sometimes he's a shadow. Sometimes he's the person next door. Sometimes he's your grandmother. And then the last thing was that no one really knows what this guy looks like. It's a big part of the myth. So as designers of Halloween Horror Nights, we were really excited about that, because that meant we could create our own monster. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about our inspiration for this particular attraction. This is a painting by the artist Goya, El Cucuy. Of course, he's got his back to us, so you can't see his face. But that was the inspiration for his costume. We took that idea from that painting and translated it to some of the other features of him. Now, when we were thinking about how to create this guy, we read all these different stories about it, and one thing we saw that was pretty common was that he had like sharp teeth. A lot of people described him as having these big, nasty, sharp teeth. And then another aspect of the story is that he had big ears, so like he could sit up in his man cave up in the hills and he could hear disobedient children. So when my partner Chris Williams, who's our art director, production designer, when we started talking about this, we decided it would be cool to give him like vampire bat ears. So this is one piece of visual reference we pulled. Here's Jaws. He was actually the inspiration for his teeth. A lot of the stories talk about how he has these big, sharp, nasty teeth and he eats children. So we thought it would be cool to give him a shark's teeth. And then going back to that pumpkin thing, as soon as we started reading about the origins of El Cucuy and how the original story talked about a ghost with a pumpkin head, I started like pulling up all these weird pictures. And this is something I do at work all the time. And I always wonder if there isn't an IT person somewhere sitting in an office looking at all the things I search, disemboweled and test, everything I search. Somewhere there's got to be a guy who's like reported me multiple times. But I like the idea of like shaping his head kind of like a pumpkin, and to use like moldy pumpkin patches as kind of like age spots. And then another thing we did is we just searched old men and looked at all these guys' old faces, because this guy's been around for hundreds of years. This particular face is something we keyed in on, and we thought it was good visual reference for creating our monster. And so this is our concept art, so this is where we landed on it. You can see the big ears that are kind of like a vampire bat's ears. You can see the shark-like teeth. If you look at the top of his head, it's kind of shaped like a pumpkin. We have the same artist that we worked with for years and years and years. All those drawings that you see released on our website, that's an artist named Lucas. And Lucas drawed. I'm an inspiration to the children of America. Thank you. Lucas drew the concept art for El Cucuy, and this is the close-up of his face, and then this is his whole body. I had this weird idea, and it's kind of messed up, but I thought that, you know, well, he kidnaps children. He lives in a cave up in the hills, right? He comes down to the pueblos at night looking for disobedient children, and he kidnaps them, and he takes them back to his lair, and he eats them. So I figured he has to transport these children somehow. So you'll notice El Cucuy's got a bag. And you probably noticed this in the maze, but if you didn't, when you go through it tonight, check this out. You'll see his bag all over the maze. And part of his bag is made with the pajamas of babies. I know, it's terrible. Aside from our base look of El Cucuy, he's a shapeshifter, so we see him appear as different characters. This is the concept art for El Cucuy inside our movie theater when he appears as an usher. Then we go into the janitor's closet, so this is Janitor El Cucuy. And then we go outside, and there's a crime scene, and this is the police officer El Cucuy. And then we go to this really weird part, and I should mention, when we were creating this maze, Chris and I, normally the way we work is we sit in our office and we take Post-it notes and we put them on the wall. And there's kind of like 3 different things that we're putting on the wall. One is scene ideas, one is environment ideas, and one is characters. And it was a little different when we were creating El Cucuy because I was on paternity leave. I wasn't having a baby. My wife was having a baby. So Chris and I were kind of working independently, and we each kind of came up with our own idea. So when we got back together and we started talking about El Cucuy, I had one idea for how to do the maze. He had a totally different idea, and we ended up kind of mashing our 2 ideas together. One of the ideas I had is I thought it would be cool if you like followed this little kid's story. Like he's going to see this movie for his birthday and his uncle's taking him. And then when he gets out of the movie, everybody's gone and he has to kind of find his way home at night. And he eventually comes to his house where the birthday party is. And you guys saw that scene today. It's kind of like, you know, bloody massacre. But the party clown is turned into El Cucuy. So that's the design for that character. And then when he gets to his house, and this has a lot to do with my childhood, El Cucuy is his grandmother. Was anybody afraid of their grandmother growing up? I had this crazy, God bless her soul, this crazy grandmother who, when we came home from school, this is like elementary school, right? She would hide in different parts of the house. And if you ever saw the Pink Panther movies, you know how Kato would always hide and he'd attack Peter Sellers? It was exactly like that. She'd always have like a monster mask, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or the Phantom of the Opera, and she would put on the whole costume, and she would like be waiting. And we'd come home, and we'd open the door and go, "Grandma?" We'd walk around the house, and eventually she'd jump out of some closet, and she'd scare us. But she wasn't satisfied in just scaring us, you know, in place. She was mobile. She would scare us, you know, out of the house, down the street, around the corner, around the block, and she wouldn't stop. You'd like turn around and look behind you, and you'd see her still coming. So this is my little homage to my grandmother.